Bates College, $75,000 a year. Bates College revamps math classes to reflect social justice and anti-racist programming. Actually, teaching math to math students is not considered a social justice necessity under the plan. Math is so yesterday. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is The Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Dr. Duke Show. This is the only program you're ever going to find anywhere to keep you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today, our show and every day is sponsored by Mike Lindell and our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% at MyPillow.com when you use the code Dr. Duke, named for me, DRDUKE. Support us by supporting MyPillow. MyPillow will support us. All is well. Today we start in Maine, where overrated, no one's ever heard of it, completely out of their minds, overexpensive, Bates College has announced that they are revamping math courses, particularly calculus, because to make them focus more on colonialism. I think nothing says colonialism to me like the Pythagorean theorem, I guess. So, Katie, let's can we examine the life at Bates College here? What can you got for us today?
Sure. Since we're talking math, and Dr. Duke knows nothing of the math.
Nopes.
I will talk about it. They have a working group, as they're calling it, a working group, and it has professors, it has students, and they're recommending that I think every major should offer two courses, on race, colonialism, white supremacy, power, and privilege. And naturally, where this must be included is in math, of all places, because we know math is racist. And so they're going to put it in, they say, math 105, just basic calculus 1. If you go to college, you're probably going to have to take a math course, especially since you probably can't test out of math courses because in high school you didn't learn any math whatsoever, so you're going to end up being in it. So you're going to take math 105, it's calculus 1. They're suggesting that you could put, quote, situate race, white supremacy, colonialism, power, and privilege centrally and attend to them throughout the course. How in Calculus 1 are you supposed to attend to white supremacy, colonialism, power, and privilege? How is it that you would do that?
I think you could do it like this. What you could do is say, stop. And after the first month of class, you could stop and say, now, the math we just taught you is math that has exclusively been reserved for white people. Black and brown skinned people were not given the same opportunity to be educated as white people. Calculus was invented by an evil white man. All of this whiteness scares and frightens poor inner city kids. So let's take a week and reflect on all the ways what we just taught you is really just knowledge for knowledge's sake. It has no practical use other than to rub in the faces of poor BIPOC people, to rub it in their faces that their cultures were oral. It's just in every way, and apologize. Spend half of that week just apologizing. Everybody's assignment is, instead of doing math homework, every math student in that class must find 5 people of color to apologize for from the basis of calculus and get their names that they have been forgiven.
Now, how do you determine the number 5? Because I'm sure the number 5 is somehow white supremacy as
You're
well.
right.
So you must determine.
Because numbers are racist, right?
Numbers are racist,
how about this?
Too.
Every student in the math class must find pumpkin number of students to talk to.
Pumpkins also might
pumpkin
be.
is
Pumpkin.
How about maize?
It's pumpkin spice.
How about something completely
okay.
Native American? Maize. Every student will find maize students, right?
Or is it Maize X?
Maize X. I don't. Well, X is okay because of Malcolm.
They like the X.
All right, okay.
Anyway,
sounds good.
Now, also, if this plan is implemented, the students have to take the introductory course. Remember, because there's 2, so there'll be an introductory course and an advanced course for this racial being. An example was that the STEM majors could satisfy the advanced requirement by taking Math 233, Mathematics for Social Justice. Good for them.
In other words, a math class that's not a math class to get your math credit out of the way. It's genius.
And
it's
social
genius.
Justice. You become a warrior in
Why
that
not
class.
just get rid of the math requirement altogether.
I agree.
And make every class just be get rid of all the majors.
I do.
Only study social justice.
Now, this working group also suggested in their little report that they're recommending that in order to fulfill the racial education requirements, a math class must include an understanding of how mathematical methods can expose racial and other injustices, and the role of mathematics as a gatekeeper and a driver of injustice. I did not know that was happening in math.
A gatekeeper suggests gated houses, which is racist. And I'm thinking of my driving Miss Daisy when the poor black driving. The language of this working group is so inveterately racist. We must disband it.
I agree.
Immediately.
I agree. Well, let's get out of math and go to biology because math is racist, biology is racist, everything is racist.
Can you be a master at Bates of math?
I do not know. Anyway. In biology, a course must include the context of a genetics course to understand the social construction of race and the fact, they're saying fact, that there is nothing biological supporting these hierarchies and historical injustices.
Wait, they're talking about genetics and race. Okay.
And social construction of race.
Yeah.
So then how is white supremacy of race?
Welcome to the world of eugenics. Eugenics. It's back in style. Eugenics. Smile while you lie about all sorts of things. Eugenics.
Anyway, moving on to your territory, something you seem to understand, even though it is obviously racist, the humanities.
Oh.
And the advanced humanities requirement could be fulfilled by altering the subjects that are taught in English 113, which is theory of narrative, or of English 241, which is supposed to be U.S. fiction. They currently teach, those evil people like Hawthorne and Howells, James, Wharton, Jewett, and Chestnut, and they want more recent stuff like Baldwin, Don DeLillo, Toni Morrison, of course, Donald Barthelemy, Sherman Alexie, and David Foster Wallace. And you could actually, at this point now, include Hillary Rodham Clinton because she just came out with her first fiction novel the other day.
You mean her biography? That's the most fictional thing she ever wrote.
State of Terror is, as she says, her first foray into the land of fiction.
The State of Terror, waking up Hillary Clinton and first glancing in the mirror.
Stop.
State of Terror.
Well, before we move on, just a quick reminder that the best way to access our content is to download our Freedom Project Media app. Simply search Freedom Project in your little app store, download, and then you make sure you allow for notifications. Also, if you do like listening to the audio podcast, we are available on Apple, Google, SoundCloud, and everywhere else. From the racist math to, I guess, the racist farm kids, the agricultural students at UW-Madison, all a bunch of racists. Apparently.
Look, it's overwhelmingly true that white people grow the food for this country, and therefore, just because of that,
yes,
it must be racist.
Cows, pigs, horses, they're all racist. Nay. And their handlers, basically the ones who attend UW-Madison, they're racist. So naturally, we have to have anti-racist training. And the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences at UW-Madison announced that the staff will be required to undergo annual professional development in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and of course, anti-racism training. Now, the announcement stated, earlier this year, the Academic Planning Council formally approved a new college policy requiring annual professional development for faculty and staff in diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racist practices. This policy is intended to foster professional development to increase the college's overall capacity to grapple with the difficult issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion, leading to an increasingly positive climate for all students, faculty and staff. Because our knowledge related to positive climate equity and inclusion continues to evolve, this policy allows some flexibility. The policy's aim is to encourage professional development tailored to the roles of our personnel and reflective of their knowledge, skills, and abilities in these critical areas.
Jeez.
And I personally, I purposely read that entire
Personal development, professional development, professional
because
development.
it's professional development and equity. This is how they word soup all of it. What is actually going to happen? They will be told that if they are white, they are racist.
Exactly.
They will be told that it's white supremacy for all these white kids to be farmers or want to do anything with dairy science or any sort of agriculture, because that's the entire school is agriculture and understanding what happens with agriculture.
Look, they're not doing this to the women's studies program, right?
Why?
Because
Why
who
would
are
they do that?
incredibly exclusive of what they do. I mean, it's women's studies. You've included the only way you talk about men is evilly, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'd think they would get some training to be more balanced, but no, it's ag, right? Primarily farm kids, and that's why they're targeting it, right? Ag is either largely completely apolitical or moderately conservative because, I mean, let's face it, how many progressives want to spend their time digging in the dirt?
Well,
not many.
Well, here's what's, I think, fascinating in my own personal college experience. Because we're talking agriculture, at this point in life, it goes kind of a couple different ways. You have what you would consider, I guess, to be the traditional farming route or understanding dairy science, or basically the way agriculture has been. And then you get the uber progressives on the other side because they think more about like climate and earth and all that. So you actually, in the same classroom, especially this happens a lot in any of the environmental sciences, you get both sides of it. You get like the kids who want to be hunters and, you know, live out on the land kind of thing. And then you get the save the earth ecosexuals, as we've seen in past times. And they're supposed to share the same space in a classroom together. I can only imagine what happens in those classrooms. But this also is happening in agriculture as well.
Well, now you grew up on a farm.
Hi.
And I've met your dad, nice man. He's also a farmer.
Nice man. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I want you to take a moment and acknowledge your white privilege and explain to the audience all the ways that you use farming to be racist.
Well, and that is how I've been racist all this time. But back to the story.
If you missed that, that was a horrifying tale. Make sure you record this because if you didn't want to miss that segment.
So back to the story, though. Now, beginning in fiscal year 2023, compliance with this requirement is mandatory. Well, it's required, so it's mandatory. For consideration for any of the awards that they hand out from the college. So if you want to get, life sciences rewards or awards, you better do this.
Take your awards, UW-Madison, and stick them where the sun don't shine on crops. Right up your...
All right, for awards or nominations also for the college and for any external awards, compliance is also required for pay plan and merit increases. So if you want to get paid more, you got to just bow to the cow.
And I bet you that you could push this in court and win. I bet you could challenge this. You're not going to give me a raise unless I self-racialize myself. You're not going to allow me to apply for X, Y, and Z. You're going to withhold awards and raises from me simply because I refuse to teach your racist view of agriculture. I don't think that would stand up in court. And it's a good thing somebody needs to try this out.
Now, see, the reason, though, is you'd be on the side of those professors who they are claiming the reason they started this whole thing is because a number of the professors currently in the department are clueless, quote, clueless as to the extent of the racism practiced in the department. They didn't list any examples,
of course not.
Why would we do that? As the recommendation states, a recurring theme in our discussions with students at the graduate and undergraduate levels is the majority of faculty and staff are clueless about the racism in our college and even less knowledgeable about how to counteract it.
That's because there is no racism. And isn't this America 2021? Lack of racism is proof of racism. And then you got to get trained. Okay.
I am so happy to announce that no longer will you get an F in school. I'm going to go back to school just to make sure that I then won't get any Fs. Because, it's all in the name of inclusion, that we cannot give Fs to anyone. And this is happening in Minnesota.
Just like no person is illegal. No person is F.
No.
It's a new slogan for the left. No person is F.
Left. Anyway, this is happening at Sunrise Park Middle School in White Bear Lake. And they announced that teachers are no longer going to give out the good old F grades to the students for the 2021-22 school year. Test scores of 59.49% are no longer F or failing. Now you get a new letter of the alphabet. It's an I. Why not a Q? Why not a Z?
How do
Why
you know
not
it's
an
not
X?
a lowercase L?
Oh, I'm so confused
As
now.
for losers.
Now, no matter how low the score may go in limbo style, including 0%. I mean, it can go all the way down to 0% there. Any grade that is below 50%, 50%, it's automatically going to be raised to the 50%. And you're going to get your I. Can someone just explain this to me?
And then the other thing that you probably notice is that we're not using anything under 50%. And so I'll explain a little bit more on the next slide. So when we calculate the average, just add them up, divide by how many there are, we end up with 50, which again is an I, an incomplete, not passing. That doesn't seem fair. If 2 out of the 3 grades are already passing grades, and only one of them the student missed, they shouldn't have an overall grade of an I. So the solution is to give the I the same interval as the B and the C, as any letter grade. And so that's why the I needs to start at 50 so that it has that same 10-point interval. And now if we calculate the average, we do end up with that D, which in our heads made sense in the first place. So starting at 50% really just corrects and allows us to give that I range the exact same range as any other letter grade.
In your head, right?
Yeah.
I am. That tells you everything you need to know. In your head, zombie. That's because we're dealing with zombies here. Mental educational zombies. Zombie. In the heads. In the heads. Zombie. Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing here. Brain dead academics, zombies. The thing to do is to take in the words of Creed Bratton, take a sharp stick and plunge it into their ears.
All right. Well, hey, let's just take this out. I mean, they did do the first 2 assignments and they passed. So, I mean, you did 2/3 of the work, so that's fine. Like, I know if I, for some reason, have to go under the knife and have a life-saving surgery, as long as the doctor does 2/3 of it, so where
That's
like
right.
he's going to, cut me open and then repair, and then just he did 2/3 of it. And if he forgets to close me back up, that's fine, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
that makes logical sense because surgeons and all them don't need math.
Yeah, so you get an 80 and a 70 and you don't do the last paper, and no,
Yeah.
you don't deserve to fail for that.
I know.
That's unfair.
I'm going to go into school from now on, and I'll get my A on my first 2 assignments and then just stop because I'll still get a B overall, right? Like, who
Yeah.
cares?
And school.
Every
We got to
couple there.
stop calling school. We got to stop calling education. None of the things that we're reporting has anything to do with education. It is, in fact, what these progressive educrats are doing is going out of their way to deny education. Education is consequences. Education is measurable. Education is something that needs to be traced. Education is something that should be constantly growing and becoming more complicated and becoming more powerful as you move through it. Education now, it's not education. It's some kind of a collective social petri dish of people who aren't getting educated, but are getting all sorts of sociological reasons, either why they don't have to, or why they already being educated, they just don't know it. And so this is your future, America. Complete and utter knowledge-based ignorance and colossal political arrogance. Welcome to the death of your country.
Congratulations. This same St. Paul-based school, Sunrise Park Middle School, made some national headlines not all that long ago, and we had talked about it at the time because they had this social emotional lesson, and it was about oppression. And the choir teacher at the school had separated 6th grade students based on privilege and targeted categories. So this school and their superintendent, Wayne Kazmierczak, is known to do this stuff. I mean, he had said, Wayne, that grading can be one of the largest areas in which systemic racism.
Yeah. Accountability, Wayne, right? Anything that holds anybody accountable for their own behavior and their own performance, that's where white supremacist lives, you child. The fact that you're a superintendent of a school furthers the idea that the Peter Principle is alive and well. And I say it again, we got to stop calling them students. We got to stop calling this education, because neither of those things are what happens, particularly in Minnesota schools. Time again for some real education. We are in the Paintings of Revolution week at the Dr. Duke Show. That means we're showing you some artistic work that conjures up images of revolution, people fighting back against their government if it's tyrannical, or throwing off a tyrannical government. So far, the 3 pictures we've looked at have been mildly pro-revolution. We did the crossing of the Delaware, the wonderful painting of George Washington in the boat, very patriotic, throwing off tyranny. But again, other aspects of revolution, which our country today, the United States, seems to be on the brink of. We seem to be on the brink of a revolution. People pushing the simple people, the hoi polloi pushing back. And then we've got all of these conflicts that are being manufactured by the White House, open borders, all of this politicizing of education. So we want to focus on the idea. And we also want to point out that every revolution is not a Washingtonian revolution. You do get revolutions that are abusive and anti-human, like we're going to see for today. Our painting today is Francisco Goya, the great painting. The 3rd of May, 1808. It was painted in 1814. Here is the picture. Give them a good look at that. It really is I hate to use the word, it is a profoundly revolutionary painting. There was almost no painting like this before this one. The 3rd of May, 1808, is, as we said, an 1814 painting by Spanish master Francisco Goya. It's in the Museo del Prado in Madrid. Goya sought to commemorate the Spanish resistance to Napoleon's armies in this painting during the occupation of 1808 in the Peninsular War. The painting's presentation and emotional force secure its status as a groundbreaking image of the horrors of war. Although it draws on many different sources, from popular art to high art, the 3rd of May, 1808 marks a very clear break from conventional painting. This diverges from Christian traditions of painting and traditional depictions of war. It has no real precedent, and it is acknowledged as one of the first great paintings of the modern era. The 3rd of May, 1808 also inspired a number of other paintings, including Picasso's Massacre in Korea and famous Guernica. Under the guise of reinforcing Spanish armies, 23,000 French troops entered Spain unopposed in 1807. Even when Napoleon's intentions became clear the following February, the occupying forces found very little resistance apart from isolated actions in disconnected areas. Napoleon's principal commander, Marshal Joachim Murat, believed that Spain would benefit from rulers more progressive and competent than the Bourbons, and Napoleon's brother, Joseph Bonaparte, was set to be the king. The 3rd of May, 1808, is set in the early hours of the morning following the uprising, as 2 centers are being discussed here. 2 masses of men, one a rigidly poised firing squad, and the other a disorganized group of captives held at gunpoint. Executioners and victims' faces are abruptly lit by a square lantern situated on the ground between the 2 groups, gives dramatic light to the scene. The brightest illumination of all falls on the huddled victims to the left, whose numbers include a monk and a friar in prayer who's been executed. To the immediate right in the center of the canvas, other condemned figures stand next in line to be shot. The central figure is the brilliantly lit man kneeling amid the bloodied corpses of those already executed, his arms flung wide, either in appeal or defense or defiance. His yellow and white clothing repeats the colors of the lantern. His plain white shirt and sunburnt face shows he is, or I guess we could say after the firing squad, he was a simple laborer.
Okay, well, those are the stories for today. If you have a question for us, please feel free to drop it into the mailbag by emailing askduke@fpeusa.org. And if you enjoy our content, please support our show by joining our Patriot Club. Come be a member. Your tax-deductible donation does keep this show going. Simply visit patriotclub.us to get signed up. That's patriotclub.us. And as a special thank you, we will ship you a brand new American Patriot tumbler. And yes, a rather ripped George Washington is still on that tumbler.
Swole Washington. What could be better? And that's going to do it for this show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, pump up, baby. Pump up.